All right, so it's time for another edition of our new Wednesday feature where we focus on the unconventional side of the law. Now, we're calling it So Now What?
So Now What?
And we're joined once again by our expert lawyer and director at legalise.co.za, Eitan Stern. Thanks for being here, man.
Nice to be here.
And of course, this is a very interesting topic.
Yeah, man. So what got us started on this conversation with the school year recently kicking off and the increasingly ridiculous prices of games, one of our Expresso team members here, who shall go as anonymous, wanted to know if it's legal for her teenage son to get a part-time job to afford those games that they lust after. So the question is, so now what?
I think I'm only here because the Expresso team's always landing up in legal trouble.
That person, okay, they haven't gotten into trouble yet, okay, allegedly. But this is quite an interesting one because there are so many opportunities for young people to get work. Back in the day, I was expected to get a job if I wanted pocket money, get a paper round, yo. What is the legal age to start working?
So in South Africa, the first thing to know is, well, what's the legal age of a child? So in South Africa, you are considered a minor until you're 18 years old. So, and South African law really preserves and protects children's rights. So it's a big thing in our law. We've got the Children's Act, and they really try to protect children's rights. So up until you're 18 years old, you're not supposed to be able to work. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's pretty old. And it is quite old, but when you're between 15 and 18, you can, in some instances, get work, which we can talk about a bit later. But if you're under 15, you're not supposed to be able to work. And the reason they have this law and the reason they have these ages is because children are supposed to be in school. So when you're under 15 years old, you're not supposed to be working, you're supposed to be going to school. So the law makes sure that, you know, if you're under 15, you're not supposed to be working.
So you're saying I might or might not have been an illegal labourer?
You were a child.
But just possibly. I'm just saying, if it was the case, if I did work, I'm not saying I did. If I did.
So interestingly enough, you know, so there are certain jobs that kids under 15 can do, which I'm pretty sure you would have fallen into. So if you're in the entertainment industry, I mean, not everyone is putting their baby on an advert or, you know, is landing up in trouble. So if you're in the entertainment industry, like an actor, sports stars, you know, or anything involved in cultural activity like dancing, you know, that's all allowed.
Are you trying to tell us that an entertainment job's not a real job? No, is that what we've arrived at with this conversation here?
So let's talk about it. Legally at 18, then or after 15, you're allowed to earn money on your own. What happens to the money?
Whose money is it?
Whose money is it? That's the question I'm trying to get to. If you're younger than 15 and you're working a job and you're getting paid, whose money is it really?
So the money will always belong to the child, to the person who's doing the work. If you're sending your kid to work and taking the money, that's what we call slavery. It's not allowed. So it always belongs to the child. But obviously, you know, while children are allowed to earn money in certain instances, they are not supposed to just be able to do whatever they want with it. Because a parent's job is to be a guardian for a child. So just the same as children are allowed to have sweets, but they're not allowed to have as many as they want. They can have money, but it's still up to the parent to make sure the child's using it responsibly. So if the child's doing a paper route at 16 years old, obviously that's going to be pocket money for PlayStation games, and that's a really good experience for someone to learn about. But if it's a baby who's earned a lot of money in a TV commercial, then hopefully that's being put towards their education
trust,
or savings of some sort.
So is it illegal for a 17-year-old to work as a runner in a restaurant, bussing tables?
Okay. So the 90s were a very different time for us.
Very.
So again, so if the kid is over 15 years old and it's not affecting their school life and they're being kept in a safe environment that's not putting them at risk, then it's no problem. But there's a big difference between a 16-year-old being a runner at their local Spur and a 12-year-old being
working in a factory.
A bartender at, you know, doing late nights in a shady bar. So it really is about, you know, kids between 15 and 17 are allowed to work, but they have to be kept in a safe environment and, you know, away from danger, and that's appropriate for a child. So, you know, you can't send your child, a 15-year-old can't get a job in a factory, but might be able to get a job, you know, running tables at their local restaurants.
Just think my poor mother driving around delivering papers for me when my bike kept breaking. That's actually what my paper route amounted
Mom's
to.
the best.
Mom's rock and roll.
Oh, man, interesting stuff. We'll carry on our conversation with Eitan very shortly. Give us your questions on social media, perhaps, if you have any interest in this kind of topic. Your little one wants to acquire some kind of independence, making their own money so that they can do their own thing.
So now what?
Why is this so personal to me right now? I've got like memories coming up. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this. I had to have a fight with my grandma.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast show. It's time to continue our conversation in So What Now, our new legal feature where we try to understand the more unconventional side of the law. We've got our legal expert, lawyer and director of Legalise, Eitan Stern, and we're talking about children working and acquiring jobs at a very early age, like we had to.
Yeah,
you know,
kind of had to, and I say that as someone who had, in my own way, there were challenges, but we lived a pretty privileged. My mother did an amazing job of setting up my existence, which was just incredible when I look back. But the reality in South Africa is that there are households that have nothing.
Totally.
And often if a child wants to eat, they have to work. That is the reality of South Africa. How do we wrap our heads around that? What should be protecting children in that instance?
So, I mean, it's a really interesting thing. And I think the first thing is we should be wrapping our heads around that. And the law has to...
It's the South African narrative.
It's the South African narrative. And the law has to, apply to privileged families and unprivileged families. And so in some instances, people are going to have to work. So, again, they still can only work when they get to 15 years old. And if a child is having to work, they can only work an 8-hour day. They can't work more than 40 hours a week. And they can't work between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. So there's still, even in the instances of poverty, the law still places an emphasis on child welfare and child safety and children going to school.
So the state should be filling that gap.
Yeah. Totally, and if you're not, and it actually is a criminal offence. If you are 100%, the state should be filling that gap. And if your child is working under the age of 15 or breaking any of those laws, it's actually a criminal offence, and you can go to jail. Which, in my opinion, it should be.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of criminal offence, as a child,
your favourite topic,
I did once wonder whether what was happening in terms of the degree of chores I was doing at home might amount to some kind of criminal offence.
How much
can criminal offence? Can household chores be construed as a criminal offence if you're having,
It felt like work.
Like
really
super.
did.
When my grandma would say, "Okay, tomorrow we are cleaning all the windows of the house," and by we she meant me.
Yeah. So these sort of things. Okay, so again, the ethic and all of this. Law is all about ethic, and it's about having like a point. So the ethic and all of it is all about child safety. So there isn't a problem giving a child chores, and it's actually a very helpful thing for a child.
Yes.
I mean, you did chores as younger, and now you're a hard-working adult.
Yeah.
So I mean, we learn lessons for these things. So it's very important, but it's still, child has to be kept safe and has to be appropriate for a child. So there's a very big difference between, take out the trash and clean the house, or go to the woods and chop wood, or you go to do some chores.
No,
in the
for some people that's not even an option. It's like, we need fire tonight, you're the one with
Was
the
it ethical
go.
to have a non-electric lawnmower that, one of those things that went like...
Again, if it's for household chores, the aim is to keep a child safe. I don't know if petrol fumes and razor blades.
Is there actually a law that pertains to pocket money? Is that...
Wow.
So there's not necessarily a law relating to pocket money. It's within a parent's rights and prerogative to, again, you're trying to teach your child values. And the law in South Africa, actually, to a large extent, stays out of the family. It says, look, if you're raising a child, you must do it in whatever you think is best, as long as you're keeping the child safe. So there's a big difference between giving your child a couple of rand in exchange for doing some household chores as a lesson, and sending them to work, an 8-hour day in a factory.
And keeping them
and if you don't, as a parent, without judgment as a parent, if you don't know the difference between those things, then maybe you shouldn't be a parent.
I'm not saying I'm going to pay you to do the chores. I'm just saying if the chores get done, there's going to be an envelope with some money sitting over there, or the piggy bank's going to feel a little bit heavier.
Mine was like, the negotiation was like, you might get 5 rand.
Yeah.
If you do all of them over the entire weekend.
Might not be an ice cream in the freezer.
The focus in all of this with the law is just, is the child being kept safe?
Yeah.
Is it appropriate for a child? And if it is, then you're on the right side of the law. If it's not, then you're not on the right side of the law.
Yeah. Eitan, thank you very much. Always appreciate your time.
Only a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Dude, you were lucky. You had the machine. I had the
Scissors.
The big one that used to work your forearms, bro. You'd be like there on a Saturday morning.
Cricket,
I had to work at the...
Yeah, man.